Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Live Music Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gill. Today, we're with Steve Kass from Swedish Days. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a wonderful thing to be here.
Steve, give us a background on you. Where did you grow up? And let's talk about your career a little bit, and then we'll talk about your position with Swedish Days.
Okay. I grew up in the city of Chicago in the 1960s. My neighborhood was called Ukrainian Village, and it was a wonderful place to grow up. And I also, as a child, lived in North Dakota and Texas and Michigan. So I've been around the country a little bit.
Wow. What took you around the country?
My dad was a preacher. And so I was years in Chicago and then on to Michigan.
Very, very good. How did you get associated with Swedish Day?
Well, the Swedish Day is held at, my wife and I joined the park back in 2006. And this happens to be the reason the park was founded back in 1925. They were looking for a place and they settled on an area that was a wooded area near the Fox River with some farmland, and they bought that property and have been holding Swedish Day ever since.
Very cool. And very cool.
It's a beautiful wooded park. It's one of the few places that has a lot of stands of mature white oak trees, and it's just a beautiful place to be. And this year will be the 99th annual Swedish Day celebration.
Very cool. Okay, so I always ask this question: what is Swedish Day? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like?
That's a great question. It really, in a sense, harkens back to a former time. It looks beautiful just with people in all different kinds of costumes, especially those that are wearing old Swedish dance costumes or Viking costumes or the like. It smells and tastes wonderful. I happen to be a partisan of something that you either love or you hate. I love herring, and the fried herring dinner is just something that is marvelous. But for people with more typical palates, Swedish pancakes and Swedish meatballs are always good. And the park has the oldest restaurant license in Kane County. And they have cooked for Swedish Day each one of those years for a long, long time. It's just been nice to see a mix of generations. There are people in the Fox River Valley area who settled from Sweden a long, long time ago. In fact, at one time, Geneva, Illinois had more Swedes than any place in the world outside of Sweden. And it was a natural thing for them to want to remember home. I never knew this, but in Sweden, this is the biggest holiday of the year, and it's celebrated at the summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year, and in Sweden, that's an 18-hour day. So they really have quite a party from the night before through the next day.
That sounds like my dream. All right, so we got the looks, we got the smells. What's it sound like?
It's just a variety of different kinds of music.
Okay.
The Swedish American Children's Choir has performed for years. We actually have one old codger who's 96 who still comes out and plays his accordion. Last year we had a German Oompa band. A few years ago we had an ABBA band come and play a lot of ABBA music. And we've always had the Nordic folk dancers. Sometimes we've had Swedish and Scandinavian folk music. And it's been fun to see the Viking reenactors clashing with their swords and spears and chainmail.
Gotcha. For you, Steve, what is the significance? What is the importance? What is the one thing that keeps you involved with this group, this organization, to keep this day going? Why is it so important for you?
You know, I believe that in many ways, we too quickly let go of heritage and forget the past. And it's been a wonderful way just to see an appreciation of music and traditions that go back more than 1,000 years. Even though it's not my own personal tradition, although I look a little bit like a Viking, it is the case that there's something in me that loves to hold on to history in a good way. In fact, one of the most astounding things in the park is the Viking ship called the Viking. Can I tell you about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
In 1893, Norway had discovered an original Viking ship, and they built a replica using black oak and literally sailed that Viking ship across the Atlantic Ocean to North America and made it all the way to Chicago for the World's Fair. It was actually one of the most popular exhibits. And after the World's Fair was over, the ship eventually was put in a Chicago organization or place called Lincoln Park Zoo. It was there for many years, and I even remember it as a boy. But the Viking ship is now at home in Good Templar Park. And it's an incredible thing to see this ship that's 125 years old, to believe that little boat got all the way across the Atlantic Ocean.
That is pretty cool. I'm writing this down because I'm gonna go on Google. I want to see some pictures here when we're done. Steve, I'm in live entertainment. I'm in live music. That's what I do for a living. So I always ask these two questions. First question is, what is the best concert you've ever seen your entire life? What would you say?
You know, I cannot answer that question because there's just too many music groups I've
Steve, you gotta give me one. You gotta give me one, Steve.
I think I would go with the ABBA reenactors. That was a pretty cool group, and we're looking forward to having them back, if not this year, then next year for sure.
Perfect. Okay. Second question would be, you could bring any one act to Swedish Day, dead or alive, money not an issue. Who would you bring for your town?
Well, it would follow on what I just said. If there was some way we could get anyone from the original ABBA band to come out to a concert, that would be the concert to end all concerts.
That would be perfect. Steve, how do people find out more about Swedish Day so they can make their vacation plans around that?
They can go to the website for Good Templar Park, and they can look to events, and they will find pictures and information about Swedish Day. There's also a second event that's held in early October called Cottages in the Woods. Okay. A very significant part of the park would be these little cottages or stugas. This goes back to what was common in Sweden. And the park has 60 stugas or cottages that are individually owned. We open those to the public for Cottages in the Woods. And actually during Swedish Day, we also have tours of a number of the cottages.
Okay, perfect. Perfect, very good. Steve, Kass, thank you for being on with us today. I appreciate it.
It's a wonderful thing, and we would love to see you at Swedish Day sometime.
That'll work.
Well, baby, I'm on.